Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to dive into a trilogy today. So, Iman Amiri, we're finally going to do the Dark Promises series by M. James, and book one is called Vicious Promise. We start the book off meeting Sophia. She is 12 years old. Her mother has just told her that her father is dead. She had a really good relationship with her father. He was a very loving father, and so this does not feel real to her. Even after the funeral, it still just doesn't feel real. So after the funeral, she winds up running upstairs when they get back to the house, goes to her room, um, because she's having a hard time at the, what do we call it, like the repast type of thing at the house, because the women would like come up to her mother and give her casseroles and hug her like they felt, sympathy for her, and then she would hear them talking about her once they walked off. And so that's what makes her finally just run upstairs. She's just had enough. She's tired of this. So she goes upstairs. Someone knocks on the door. She tells them, "Go away. I don't want to talk to anybody." The door opens anyway. A man appears. She saw the same man at the funeral. She doesn't know who he is, but feels as if he probably has something to do with why her father's gone. So the guy gives her a letter, and he says, "I was with your father when he died. He gave me this to give to you." He gives her the letter. He leaves. She doesn't read the letter. She's not ready to do that. So she just puts it in her violin case. We fast forward 8 years later. So our girl Sophia is now 20. And she is attending Juilliard. She plays violin. She is, I want to say, first chair. Like, she's at the top of her thing at Juilliard. Now, her roommate is a girl named Anastasia. She's a Russian ballet dancer. They're complete polar opposites. Sophie is very much not Sophie. Sophia is very much a introvert, and our girl Anastasia is an extrovert. But yet somehow, you know, they have become really good friends, as well as this is also Sophia's roommate. Now, Anna is what she calls her, so that's what we're going to pretty much the rest of the book. She is a party girl, wants to be out on the town. She's also at the top of her class in ballet. Sophia doesn't know how she does it because this girl parties hard, but yet she is still able to maintain her top tier status in her class. We find out that Sophia has been getting large sums of money every month in her account. She doesn't know where it comes from. It's been occurring since she was 18 years old. So these past 2 years, her school has been paid. She doesn't know who's done it. Whenever she tries to investigate to find out where the money comes from, the financial office just says, "Oh, it's just a private benefactor." So she was supposed to stay in the dorms, but they told her, she got a call, that there was a 2-bedroom pre-war apartment that was in her name. Rent was paid up for a year. So again, she doesn't tell anybody about this stuff, but this is happening. When she got the apartment, she spent one night in it. It was a 2-bedroom. She felt so completely lonely there. She put up for a roommate, and Anna's the one that answered, and that's how they became roommates, and then how they became friends. This, however, is her only friend. She has never said anything to Anna about the money and how things are getting paid. She's never said anything to her about it. Um, but I think Anna is someone who is so about, trying to obtain, money and status and things like that. And to kind of find out that this is who Sophia is, even if it's not by choice, I think she's probably a little worried of what it might do to their friendship. Like, then would she know if this is really her friend or not, you know? But if you have already made a friendship, I don't know. No, at the same time, what your friend got to do with what's in your bank account, you know? So, no, I'm not going to say she needs to say anything cuz it's none of her business. So, no, I'm going to stick with it. She can keep it to herself. That's her own private business. I'm quite sure Anna won't tell her every single thing about her life, so she got to keep some things for herself. One more thing about Sophia, she even tried to get like a job, because she has tried not to use any of that money that's in her bank account, but no one would call her back. Like, she wouldn't even get an interview. I was like, wow. So anyway, it is Anna's birthday. Her birthday's coming up. She calls it her birthday month. Sophia's like, no one does that. No one has a month. You have a day, you know? So Anna wants her to come out with her tonight. She's like, no, I have rehearsal. And of course, she gets a message saying that her rehearsal's been canceled. So now Anna's like, you have no excuse. You've got to come out with me. So begrudgingly, she's like, okay, fine. I will go. So Anastasia's like the ballerina, blonde, thin type thing. And then we have our girl Sophia, who now she had dark hair as a child, but she's been dyeing her hair platinum blonde for how many ever years. She lost all her baby fat when she was 16. She still got curves. She's got like a, woman's body. So Anna gets her dressed up, gives her an outfit, some 6-inch heels, does her makeup. Girl looks like a Hollywood star. She looks absolutely amazing when she looks in the mirror. But Sophia has a bad feeling. And she hasn't had that feeling since 8 years ago when a man brought her a note. So she knows it's a warning, and yet she just, of course, doesn't know what the warning is actually going to be about. We switch to Luca, and we find out that he works for the mob. He works for a guy named, is it Don Rossi? He's the head of the family. And Rossi doesn't have any sons, but he has a daughter named Katerina, and she's going to marry Lucas's best friend, Franco. So Luca is supposed to become the head guy once Rossi dies, or whatever, if he steps down or whatever. And then Franco would be second in command. So then what would happen is, once Franco and Katerina have children, hopefully they would have a son, and then uh, Luca would leave, one of them as the like heir apparent, so the Rossi bloodline doesn't, you know, stop with Don Rossi. He is incredibly wealthy, eligible bachelor in Manhattan. He gets an alert. It's the same alert he gets every month. That's been going on for like the past 3 years. He knows the amount, doesn't even have to look at it. It's just a large sum that goes into Sophia Ferretti's account. That's Sophia's last name, Ferretti, each month. And we do know is that he was promised to Sophia. Now, the person that handed her, I think it was him that handed her the note. It was either him or his father. One of them. I can't remember. Um, but they've actually been promised to each other. Sophia knows nothing of this, okay? But our boy Luca knows all about it because he's fully in the family. So Sophia didn't really know about that side of her father. He kept that part of himself very separate. So she would remember like certain men coming in suits dressed at the house. She would remember certain things, but again, nothing was ever done in front of her or her mother. And so you know, she wasn't brought up in this life that way. Whereas Luca was in this life from the day he was born. So he knows about the promise that they're to be married, if it ever should come to that has to happen. Now Luca hasn't seen her since she was 12. That was the last time he saw her. He does remember that her mother was incredibly beautiful. And he's kind of like, if she's even a fraction of that, he already knows he won't, he doesn't want to be tied down, but, you know, he knows she'll be a knockout just being a fraction of what the mother looked like. So then we switch back to Sophia. They're having their night on the town. We find out that her mother died a year after her father died. So she apparently got cancer, and they caught it too late, but she honestly thinks that her mother just didn't have it in her to fight. Like, after the father died, she was just probably just ready to be back with him. So she's been like an orphan. So they go to the bar. They go to a few bars, actually. And then finally, Anna gets a text about this new club. Super exclusive. She's been trying to get into this place for months. She's been given the secret password. So they go to this place, and it's like red lights inside. And the people are like, welcome to hell. It's a hell of a name for a club. They get inside. It's a lot of people. They're at the bar. They're trying to get a drink. Some guy comes up. He has like a blonde buzz cut, and he tries to buy Sophia a drink. And she's like, no, I'm okay. And he keeps insisting. And so when he puts his credit card down, there's an eagle tattoo. And Anna sees it. And she's like, no, we're fine. We're fine. And she takes Sophia away. And so then she tells Sophia that's the Russian mafia, the Bravada. And like, you have to stay away from them because they might, they'll follow you, X, Y, and Z once they set their sights on you. So they start dancing. It's so crowded. She just wants a break after a while. So she's like, I'm going to the restroom. And Anna's like, no, we stay together. Like, you don't do anything by yourself in here. So they go, but Sophia really doesn't have to pee. She just needed a break. But Anna does have to pee, so she goes in the stall. And so when Sophia is waiting, someone comes up behind her and covers her mouth. It's the blonde buzz cut guy. And he whispers to her, like, you come with me or I'm going to kill your friend right now. And so he winds up pretty much dragging her out of the club. Uh, Gets her back to the alleyway. There's a black car idling, and she knows if I get in that car, my chances of survival are going to go down so much. So she's thinking like, well, maybe they know about the money I'm getting every month and they're trying to kidnap me to get it. So she's like, if you want the money, I'll just give it to you. And he's looking at her like, what are you talking about? And he's like, just get in the car. And she's like, no. And then they stick her with the needle and she passes out. And no, I'm sorry. Before she passes out, she sees another guy in the car. Then she passes out. We switch back to Luca. He's at the engagement party for his friend Franco and Don Rossi's daughter, Katerina. And the big boss, Don Rossi, comes over to him and basically kind of reminds him, like, it might come a time when you are going to have to marry Sophia. Like, you kind of need to be aware that this is a possibility. Of course, Luca's kind of like, yeah, it's not really going to be an issue. We find out that the Bravada, the Russian mob, has been trying to take over the territory. They're getting more bolder, and that apparently they are the ones who are responsible for taking out not only Sophia's father, but also Luca's father. So Luca, Katerina, Franco, they all leave from there. They go to like this little speakeasy club. While they're there, this is their first time there, by the way. A redhead approaches Luca, and she basically tells him she wants to fuck, like meet her in the bathroom. But then he gets a phone call from his boss, and he's like, you need to get down to Chelsea to the docks. They have Sophia. So Lucas gets down to the docks. Don Rossi's already there. They've already beaten up the man pretty good. But what Luca is kind of an expert in is torture. So he could get things out of people. Don Rossi likes to torture just for the fun of it. Like, he doesn't know how to stop. But Luca knows how to get what he needs out of the person. So he takes off the man's nails. There's different forms of things he does to the guy. And eventually the man tells her the hotel that they're keeping her in. It's normally a place where they take women that they traffic. So Don Rossi's like, after they're done with him, they're like, if you don't marry her, you know what that means. So basically, if he doesn't marry her, Don Rossi is going to take her out because she's a loose end that the Bravada can use against him. And Don Rossi himself will just take her out. So now Luke is kind of like, he is more than likely going to have to marry her, which is not what he wanted to do, but it's looking like that's going to have to happen. We switch back to Sophia. She's coming to, and she realizes she's tied to a bed. She is in a really nice hotel, and she starts screaming. So the person that's watching her is like, there's no point. Victor owns this hotel and everyone in it, so there's no point of you doing that. He winds up slapping her and stuff. And he says, pretty much, how did he put it? They didn't come for her until they had all of their ducks in a row. And then they were able to do it. So when Luca was torturing the guy did say that we're further ahead than you think. So now I'm like, I don't trust nobody, because now I'm wondering, they've probably infiltrated into the Italian mob, I'm sure. Because otherwise, how are they able to advance so much? I'm just kind of wondering. um, so the guy tells her, like, people are going to come for you. And she's thinking, nobody's coming for me. Like, I don't have anybody. She has Anna, but Anna doesn't know where she is. And then, sure enough, she starts hearing gunshots. So they put her in the closet, and he also told her she was going to be sold for like a super high price. And then eventually she hears them speaking Italian, and then they're coming through the house. They're taking out people, and she knows her father was Italian. Her mother was Russian. Now, her father never wanted her mother, or wouldn't allow her mother, to speak Russian in the house. Um, and I'm like, that's fucked up, because the girl is part Russian, but the daughter, she should know about her heritage. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of fucked up. But because there are, Italian mafias, Irish mafias, and then we have the Russian mafia, they weren't too crazy about the fact that the father had even married her. And so, of course, he would want it to appear as if she has nothing to do with her Russian side. But then that's a disservice, again, not only to the woman, but also to the child. Because, listen, if you don't want to have Russian child, you don't fuck a Russian woman. It's pretty basic. So, but I mean, it does her a disservice, because now people are coming around her speaking the very languages that y'all didn't teach her. And you should have. You know, just saying. Just saying. So a man opens the closet doors, and the first thing she thinks is this man is absolutely gorgeous. And she knows that's not the right, maybe, thought process she should be having right now, but that's what she thought. And then she passes out again. So then we switch to Luca, and Don Rossi says, there's one still alive. And primal, that protectiveness is very much in place. And he tells Don Rossi, I'm getting her out of here. I don't want this to be the very first thing that she sees when she learns about me. So Don Rossi lets him take her. He calls for a private physician to come to his penthouse. The woman does, and she tells I need to do an exam. And he didn't really want to leave Sophia, but he did. And he very much looks at her and thinks, "Oh my gosh, how gorgeous she is," you know, and that one time with her just wouldn't be enough. So he's already smitten. And he doesn't get this way. So this man done fucked his way all up and down Manhattan. He doesn't act like this. Um, and so he knows he has to tell her everything of what's going on, and he is not looking forward to it. So then the doctor examines her, lets him know she wasn't violated. She's very still much a virgin. Sophia wakes up. This time she's not tied to a bed, but she can tell she's in someone's place. It's nice, but she's in someone's place. So Luca comes in and she gets up, and of course she does the whole "where am I?" You know, how far up are we? He's like, "We're on the top. We're in the penthouse, my penthouse." So then she, of course, is trying to figure out who he is and all this type of stuff. She's like, "I'm ready to go home now. Can I call a cab?" He says, "You're not going anywhere." And that's when she starts going off on him. Like, demanding to know, okay, where am I? Who are you? And so he tells her he's Luca Romano, and that, unfortunately she can't leave. She's like, "No, no, no, I have to leave. I'm graduating in a couple months. Like, I'm going to Paris, then I'm supposed to go to London and be part of some orchestra." This girl has a whole plan. And then she realizes that she's saying that this plan was her father's plan that he had given her, which was a clear way to get away from here. So she remembers that name Romano, and that was her dad's best friend's last name. And she remembers seeing Luca at least twice come with his dad to the house. He was older than her, but she does remember him. But then she's like, "But what does that have to do with me? Like, why am I not able to leave?" And he says, "Well, you might as well start thinking of this place as your home, because by the end of the week, you'll be my wife." Of course, Sophia's like, "What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?" So then we get a little background. So after her father died, a couple days later, her mother had left her, I'm sorry, with the neighbor. And she remembers her mom saying to the neighbor, "If I don't come back, take her here. They'll take her." But she came back. But when she came back, she was bruised. She said she fell, but now it's starting to come into play of what really happened. She was brought in for questioning because they thought she might have had something to do with the death because she's Russian. So they figured out apparently she didn't, and that's why she's still alive. So he tells her basically, what they are. They're the Italian mob. Your father was third in command, and my father was the underboss. And so there was this whole promise that was made. Uh, Luca's father apparently died trying to avenge the death of her father. And so, of course, she never fully knew about his life. She knew there was something else going on, but because he kept it so separate, she never knew what it was. But I'm kind of like, if you thought about it, I think sometimes people like to be in that bubble because then they don't have to really face what's really happening. And I feel like that's more so what was going on, you know? To me, I think that's pretty much what was happening. She says to him, "You don't want to marry me. I know you don't, and you shouldn't have to." And he says, "I didn't at first," and he's talking in past tense. So she's picking up on this, but at the same time, she's like, "I'm not being trapped here. Like, this is not happening." She's like, I knew I shouldn't have went out with Anna tonight. I should have just stayed home." And Luca just kind of let her know they were going to get her regardless because you were a card that they were always waiting to play. So again, just because you didn't know that there was a threat, there's always been this looming threat over the family. And so the fact that your father made that pact or that promise with Luca's father, he had to know this was more than likely coming down the pipeline, right? So now she is like, it's making sense because now she knows this is where the money's been coming from. And she, of course, is like, fuck this. And she starts to run. But she stumbles when she gets to that last step, trying to get away from him. And he looks worried because he thinks, she might be hurt. But then he puts her hands above her heads and hands above her head. And he's telling her, like, no matter what you think, this is happening. Like, we're gonna be married. It doesn't matter if we want it or not. And then he looks at her, doesn't even know how to describe it. He just crashes on her lips. He just couldn't take it anymore, and he just had to kiss her. So they have this incredibly passionate kiss, and he's like, he doesn't know what's wrong with him. Like, she is infuriating. She's stubborn. Everything that, you know, she does makes him even harder. His cock is hard, and when he kisses her, her lips are even softer and sweeter than he even imagined. And so all he can think about is how much he wants to explore the rest of her body. And then she bites his lip and slaps him. And he tried to run again, but he grabbed her, brought her back to the couch. She tells him, "Stop looking at me like that." Like, he's looking at her like he's imagining her naked, and she's like, "Stop doing that." Poor girl. She likes seeing the lust in his green eyes, but it's freaking her out at the same time because she shouldn't like it and she shouldn't be wanting this. But at the same time, she's like, I gotta get out of here. But he lets her know the whole building is his. He lives in the penthouse, but he bought out the other units. He owns the whole building. The only people that live in the building are his security team. No one else is there. There's a code you gotta use even to get in or out of with the elevator. So even if she managed to get past him, she's still stuck. And he lets her know, like, I work for one of the richest men in New York. Like, the Rossi family owns all of it. You know what I mean? And so she, of course, is like, you can't force me to marry you. I won't say my vows. He says, I will keep you here until you realize the gravity of the situation. So even if you don't marry me at the end of the week, you know, you're still stuck here. And he walks off. We switch back to Sophia. She wakes up because she cried herself to sleep, poor thing. And it's upsetting because she's finding out all this stuff about her dad on top of this promise that he made. And then she sees Anna there. And Anna's like, oh, thank God. She's so happy to see her. But then she's thinking, how did you get here? So Anna tells her, Luca came and got me. And she pretty much lets Sophia know, like, you've got to marry him. And she tells her, once the, bravada sets their eyes on you, they don't stop. And you'll have a fate worse than death. And she knows she's from Russia, and her and her mother escaped after the bravada killed her father. And so her mother had always told her, you stay far, far away from those people. On top of all the other stories she's also heard as well. And she tells I wish I could tell you I'm coming to get you and we can go back home and go back to our old life, but that's not going to happen. You just can't have it again. She's like, you're safer here. Like, you're going to have to marry him. We switch back to Luca. He's watching them have the conversation on his security feed. He's got a jeweler that's on the way. He's talked to his assistant to have her find someone who can get a wedding dress done in a week. And he's called St. Patrick's Cathedral and spoken with Father Donahue. And so Sophia knocks on the door. She comes in, and she, of course, wants to know why. Did you have Anastasia come here? And he says, because you need to understand the gravity of the situation, and I figured she would be able to do that. So then she says, Anna told me to ask you one thing. What happens to me if I don't marry you? And he says, Rossi will have you killed. And so then she starts asking, how will he do it? You know? And he just tells her, you'll be a loose end and he'll take you out. How it's going to be done, I don't know. So eventually she agrees. She's like, okay, I'll marry you. I'll do it, but I have stipulations. So then she says she doesn't want to live with him, and he says fine. He had planned for that anyway. He has plenty of other buildings. She can choose where she wants to stay. He says it'll have the best security, you'll be provided for. And she tells him, I still want to be able to see Anna. He's hesitant at first, but eventually, you know, when she says that's my only friend in the world, he says, okay, but you'll be heavily guarded with everything you do. And then she says, I'm not sleeping with you. And he says, well, we have to at least one time to make the marriage legal. And she says, no, I don't care what you tell your boss. I don't care. You are not going to fuck me. So she's like, I'm not giving my virginity to you. I refuse. So his dick is about to bust out of his pants. He is so hard for her. But she says to him again, do we have a deal? He agrees to the no sex. He lets her know. He's like, you know, it's not like I don't have women that want to be in my bed, you know. And that bothers her for some reason. But she doesn't say anything. She doesn't admit that to him. Um, she doesn't admit out loud that when she bit him on the lip, it was to stop the kiss because she liked it. And she hadn't anticipated on liking it so much. She was wet and she was so turned on, like every part of her body. And so the no sex thing, she needs as much distance from him as possible because she knows she can't let him into her heart. It's funny because he's on the other side having the same conflict of not wanting her to get inside of his. So then the jeweler comes, she picks out a ring, and she actually picks out one that she would actually like. And she almost changed her mind. Um, but it was like an emerald. It had emerald baguettes on the side, which made her think of his eyes, which are green. Isn't something she should be thinking about, you know. But especially when you're saying you're trying to keep so much distance. But this is happening, and he tells her she's got a lot of paperwork to sign as well. She's signing the paperwork, and one of them is that they're not going to have any kids. Um, if she does get pregnant, it would be terminated because a child could be used against them. All this bunch of crap. So he says, well, we're not going to be having sex, so this won't be that big of a deal for you to sign it anyway. Um, she wants the stipulations that she had requested to be in the paperwork as well, but he exploded. He's like, I did that to appease you. Like, I'm a man of my word, but I'm not redoing all this paperwork for that. He just lost it on her. And she realized she probably needed to back down. He had a stylist come because she does have to play the part of the, you know, they're going to be happily married, this mafia wife and stuff like that. She has to play the part. There's going to be charity events, things with the other wives. And now she's starting to freak out because this is more than what she had anticipated. You know, she's like, I didn't know I was going to be making friends with people, you know, like this is not what she had planned for. And this is again why her father, I feel, did her such a disservice because she's walking into this and she don't know what the hell she's doing. She has no idea. And she should have been prepared for this. You can prepare people for more than one goddamn thing, right? You could prepare her for trying to escape, but you could have also prepared her for a life of if she had to deal with this, how the fuck to maneuver it. Because you didn't tell her, you know? So she's freaking out. Um, he has a stylist come over. The woman, you know, helps her with picking out clothing, jewelry, all kind of stuff. So then afterwards she goes, she takes a bath, and the bathroom itself is like larger than her whole bedroom. And she's just kind of thinking. It still bothers her, the idea of him being with other women. But then it starts to make her wonder about her father. Like, was he really even faithful to my mother? Like, clearly, I didn't know everything about him. There's so many questions that are unanswered, and she's just kind of wondering if she's ever even going to get those answers. We switch back to Luca. He's got to go meet up with Don Rossi and Franco, and Franco's kind of like, "Damn, you're beating me to the altar." And he, of course, is like, he's not looking forward to it. They have this thing that if a woman's a virgin, okay, after the wedding night, there's supposed to be blood on the sheets, and there's a witness that comes up to like verify that this has happened, right? So Luca tells him, well, she's not a virgin. Now he knows he's going to have to go back to that doctor and let her know, what's going on, so that if Rossi ever asks her, she'll advise she's not a virgin. So then he asks Rossi, did one of the Bravada men, no, Rossi asked him like if one of the Bravada men like violated her, and he's like, no, they didn't. You know what I mean? And he's lying to his boss. He's never done this before. This is an absolute first. So this is very reckless on his part. But he knows the alternative is Rossi will just take her out. But I'm like, this is, again, I'm trying to understand the purpose of the marriage. Like, how does that keep her so incredibly safe? If someone's up underneath your protection, they're underneath your protection. It's not like these people don't make moves on wives and children. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to understand what protects her so much that they have to be married. That's kind of where I'm like, I'm not getting this, because this sounds like there's something else going on that Rossi knows, and he clearly is not telling Luca. That's what it sounds like to me. When Luca comes in back home, Sophia's standing by the window. She's dressed up. He, of course, is like, "What are you dressed up for?" And she's like, "Well, I ordered dinner. I figured, if we got to go out in public, we've got to portray this happy couple. Like, we should at least like get to know things about each other." Um, he kind of was patronizing her after she said that. It made her upset, and she was like, because she said something about them being from the same thing, and he's like, "We're nothing alike." He's like, "You were shielded from all of this. Your father wanted you far away from it, but I'm the son of an underboss. Like, this is all I've ever known. We're from two completely different worlds." And so he storms off, and she goes to her room, and later on, of course, she feels foolish because while he was talking to her in the living room, he had got close and she could smell his cologne, and it smelled like lemons and something else. It just smelled very expensive, and she was like inhaling it. It smelled so good to her. And so when she gets in the room, she feels stupid. She's like, "I shouldn't even tried." You know, at this point, she's just ready to get her own place so they can just start living their separate lives. There's a knock on the door. Something sat on the ground. She waits a little bit, and then she goes, and there's a tray, and it has her portion of the food from the food that she ordered, but it's really elegantly placed on the plate. And she's thinking like, okay, he has to have staff here, but she's never seen any staff. And then she's thinking like, well, maybe the staff just knows to just stay out of the way. But it's like, no, he did that. But that's that up and down fuckery. You know what I'm saying? That she can't fully read him. She's trying to get a handle on him, but it's really difficult to kind of read him. Next morning, she wakes up. She goes down to breakfast. He's already at the table. He's eating like sausage and eggs. She says, sausage is bad for your heart. He tells her, too bad I don't have one. He tells her that the hairstylist is going to be there soon, and it's going to take most of the day because he wants her to go back to her original hair color. So she was a brunette, but she's been platinum blonde. So he's like, apparently it's going to take all day for them to correct it. So the wedding dress fitting appointment got pushed back to later that day. So then she asked if Anna could come, and he's like, nope. She loses it. She's like, I don't have anyone. I don't have a mother. I don't have a father. This is the only friend I have in the world. And all I'm asking is that you just let her do these things with me, you know? So he agrees to let her do the wedding dress thing. She can come to the ceremony, but she cannot come to the reception because people might take offense to her being there. And so she's like, okay. She was shocked that he even gave into it that much. She expected him to fight back a lot more. He does tell her that Katerina, who's Don Rossi's daughter, is going to be there with them. And he says maybe she can help you navigate this world. He admits, it's not an easy world to navigate through. It is a difficult thing. So you are going to need help. And so she was thankful for that. It made her soften to him just a little bit. But then she's kind of like, he wants you to soften up to him. And, then your guard will be down. And she's like, I can't let him get too close in. But again, she still wants to know why he is being so accommodating to her. Sophia's getting her hair done. Anna comes in, and then Katerina comes in. And of course, Anna does not like Katerina being there. They wind up going outside, Anna and Katerina, to have a little conversation. But Sophia can't hear them. And basically, Katerina is like, I didn't get to choose who I wanted either. I know how this works. I know how these mafia families think. And I can help her adjust and to deal with this. Whereas you can't because you don't know this life. And so everything that Katerina was saying, it was true, So eventually they come back inside. Her and Sophia talk, and Katerina tells her the same thing. Like, I'm just trying to help you. She's like, I plan to be more than a wife. I have ambition. Sophia's like, I'm not trying to be anything in this family. Like, this is not my goal. So they wind up leaving from there. Her hair is back to her deep brown, probably even more richer than her original hair color. She looks absolutely stunning. Even she has to admit it. She really is like, I should have never had that platinum shit. Like, this looks wonderful. Her skin has a glow to it, and she doesn't even have makeup on. So clearly she needed to stick with her natural color. So they leave. They get in the car, the limo, waiting for them. There's champagne in there. Katerina's like, there's always some type of drink in here. She asks her, if, do you want orange juice with it? Make a mimosa. And she's like, yes. So Anna and Sophia are kind of in the corner having a little chit chat. Sophia's afraid. If she starts to like anything about this life, that means she's fallen into it. She's accepting it, And Anna tells her, you'll never be a part of them. So don't think like that, Don't think you're going to cave in just because you may like something. So now they're on their way to go to pick out the wedding dress. We switch back to Luca. He goes to St. Patrick's Cathedral to meet up with Father Donahue. Father Donahue is an Irishman. And basically, when the Italians took over, they let him stay. They didn't bother him. And so if they ask him to do anything, he normally accommodates. But he is pretty forthright with the fact, that the lives that they live, they're wrong, So he's saying to Luca, are you really telling me that there is no other way to keep her safe? Like, is this truly the only way for her to be safe is to marry you? And, force this life on her. And Luca's like, first of all, I would never force myself on anyone. He said this is the safest thing for her so that Don Rossi doesn't take her out. So basically, even if, let's say, they were to send her far away, Rossi still views her as a threat, and he could still come after her and take her out. But again, how is it that just because she's married to Luca, that's going to stop him? If she's a threat, she's a threat. And I don't understand why she's a threat. So that's the part that I'm trying to figure out. That's the mystery. How is she a threat? So then, of course, Father Donahue was like, okay, But he does tell him, you always have a choice. He leaves from there, goes back to the apartment, because he didn't want to go back to the office, and the silence is so crushing to him right now. And so he winds up going to her closet and he sees the dress that she had on when he rescued her. He's smelling the dress. It smells of her. He jerks himself off, and afterwards he's like, "What the fuck is wrong with me? Like, I don't do this." He's like, "I have got to get her out of my head. Like, this is really fucking me up." We switch back to Sophia. They're at Kleinfields and it's overwhelming because she never was one of those people that thought about a wedding and her wedding dress and all this type of stuff. So the whole place has been shut down. There's a bunch of security there. She's the only customer. And they explain, or Katerina explains, that there's still a threat on you. So the best way to keep you safe is to try and control the environment, right? So if you're the only person in here, there's a better shot of us seeing if someone's coming at you. She tries on a few dresses and she actually finds one that she really likes. And so this is happening. 4 days, she's getting married. So Sophia doesn't see Luca for like a couple days. He pretty much makes sure that he's gone before she gets up and that he doesn't come home until she's in her room. So she's on her way to the cathedral for her confirmation with Father Donahue. She comes in, they talk, and he tells her, he was there when that promise was made. And it was supposed to be, again, a life or death thing. It was either marriage or she was going to die. So at this point, this seems to be where they are. But he also told her, your father very much wanted you to escape this place. He tells her also how he is grateful to her father because he was the one that convinced the Don at that time to not take him out because they could easily put someone else in that church. But they didn't. And so he, was forever grateful to her father for what he did. He does tell her, your father, he had his issues, he did his things, but he seemed to, at the core, to be a good man. And basically, Father Donahue, lets her know that right now, this is the option that's in front of you. Like, you do need to marry him at this time. He says, but if there comes a day where there's no longer a threat on your life, if you walk through those doors, I will help you get away. And for the first time, she feels that hope. Like, now there's a possible light at the end of this tunnel. So she's either got to wait for Don Rossi to die or something else that allows her an ability to possibly be free. So she's going to go through Saturday. And she's going to go through with the wedding, because now it does feel like I might have a shot of getting out of this. This really may not be forever. We switch to Lucas's POV. He's on his way to the rehearsal. The only people that are going to be there are Don, Rossi, his wife, Katerina, and Franco, and the priest. So he's got himself all in a twist because, Luca went out a few nights trying to find some cooch, but he didn't find anything he wanted. And the truth was, nothing was getting him hard. Like, the very thought of Sophia makes him rock hard. And he was trying to find someone to bring home, but it never happens. And the last 2 nights, all he's done is come home, shower, and jerk off in the shower. So he's like, he wish he could just get on the plane, go to Amsterdam, and do the most filthiest things to get her out of his system. But at this point, he's not even sure that would work. He's not even sure that the distance from her is going to get her out of his system. So he just doesn't know what he's going to do at this point because nothing seems to be able to work. She walks down the aisle. Father Donahue asks, is anyone going to give her away? The Don Rossi says, "Oh, I will," and freaking Sophia goes, "No." And everyone looks at her, but she recovers pretty good because she says, "My father already gave me away. I can walk my own self down the aisle." And so the Don is pissed, but her answer was satisfactory enough for him to chill the fuck out. Um, Luca, of course, is thinking like, even like he's not gonna be able to touch her. Like he's kind of pissed at himself for agreeing to this stupid deal. It's like, this is gonna be a lot more difficult than I thought. So after they kiss in front of everybody tomorrow, he's not gonna get to touch her anymore, and he hates that. And he just doesn't understand why she just won't give in, because he knows she's attracted to him. He can feel it, he can see it, how she reacts, and it's just like, but she just won't give into it. So she says to him through clenched teeth, first he says to her, let me say it correctly, "Don't bite me tomorrow." And then she says, "I wouldn't dream of it, my groom." And then she says to him, "Make tomorrow a good one, because after that you won't touch me again." There's even more people at the actual reception, which is at this Italian restaurant called Vito's. Of course, it's been bought out for the evening. She gets overwhelmed meeting all these new people. She feels like she's about to pass out or have like a panic attack. So she excuses herself. She goes to the restroom, and Katerina comes and, follows her and tells her, "I know it can be overwhelming. I get it." So of course Sophia's like, "You say you don't love Franco, but the way you look at him, it seems different." But she says, "We get along, you know." But she also says, "I always knew I wasn't going to be able to choose my own destiny. I didn't want this, but I also knew this was going to happen. I'm just trying to make the best of it." So she tells her she had other dreams. And so eventually Sophia asks her what they were, and she admits she wanted to be an elementary school teacher. She loves children. And her father even let her go to college and get a degree, even though she was never going to use it. She couldn't live on campus. She had to stay home. She had a curfew. They had to protect her virginity. And so for a moment, she does feel sympathy for Katerina, because this person had dreams as well, and she can't have it. And so she walks out because she's like, she's just going to step outside and get some air, because um, she feels like she's going to have a panic attack. Well, she walks outside and she keeps walking. And before you know it, she's down the street and she starts to having a panic attack. She's trying to breathe, and then someone walks up. It's Luca. And I thought for sure like one of the bravado guys was going to grab her ass. I really did. But Luca, he's looking at her and he's pissed because he thinks she tried to run. She's like, "No, I wasn't. I wasn't." And he's like, "What were you doing then?" He's like, "That's what you were doing. You were going to run. Was Anna going to come in and sweep you up and take you away?" And she's like, "No, I just needed to breathe. Like, I just needed to breathe." He's like, "You needed to breathe a block and a half away from the restaurant?" He's like, "I already made excuses for us to leave early this evening." He's like, "We're leaving." And so she gets scared because she's thinking like, if he thought she was going to try and run, like what's he going to do? And he says, "We're going home." We switch back to Lucas POV. They're in the car. He's so pissed off. He's like, "That was embarrassing." He's like, "They were asking me, where's my bride to be? And all this type of crap. And do you know how that makes me look? It looks like I don't have control." So she tries to explain that's not what she was doing, but he doesn't want to hear it. They get upstairs. He tells her it doesn't matter, you know, that she claims she wasn't running. Some part of her wanted to run, and that's why she did it, whether she meant to or not. And he's like, "That's going to end tonight." He's like, "I'm going to show you who you belong to." And so he winds up doing that same move, pinning her hands above her head, kissing her, and the same things happen. She falls into it at first, but then she bites his lip. She doesn't slap him this time, and he winds up putting his hand under her dress, and he's fingering her to the point um, that she's about to come. He takes her panties off. She kept saying, "You promised, you promised," and he was just like, "You promised too, but you broke your promise." And he said, "I'm not gonna fuck you." He's like, "I can make you come many different ways." He rubbed her until she was about to come, and then he stopped. But he was so turned on that by this time, he had her bent over the couch, and so he just nutted on her ass. And he says to her, "Don't ever forget you belong to me." He walks off. So Sophia's just laying there for a moment, and she's thinking he might go and going to get something to go clean her off. Dude doesn't come back. So he goes in his room. He's done for the night. So eventually she gets up, she takes a shower, and she's just like so baffled at the fact that she was so close to caving in. Like she was about to tell him to just take it. She had never been aroused so much in her life. It was just too much. And afterwards she felt so used, like a sex toy. And but at the time that it was happening to her, it was so hot and she liked it. She comes out of the shower, she turns on the light, and she sees her things from her old apartment. Her comforter there is there, her violin, she sees a jewelry box with a note, but she goes to the violin first, that she has never read that letter. It was still tucked away in the violin, and she decides to read it. And so her father, Giovanni, says, if you're reading, then I'm gone. And he's made precautions to make sure her and her mother are taken care of. He does say to her, if you ever get a chance to get away from this life, run. He states one of his regrets was that he didn't take her and her mother and run away. He was too much of a coward to even try. He tells her to go and be great and to perform music that the world will love to hear. And so, of course, she's, you know, boohoo crying, right? And then she goes to open the jewelry box, and there's a note in it as well. And it said that, I know you're supposed to have something old, something new, and what is it? Something borrowed and something blue. So it states that Anastasia told him that she always wears that necklace from her mother. He says, so he figures that'll be something old. And he says these earrings, and I think it was like a bracelet too, they belong to his mother, and they have blue sapphires in them. So he's like, I know my mother would have wanted you to have these, so hopefully you'll wear these tomorrow. And he signed it Luca. So now she's confused because she cannot reconcile who is this man. He does these type of sweet things, and then what the hell just happened between them in the living room. And she's pulled towards him. She keeps denying it, but then he does other things, and it's like she is just completely torn. She wakes up the next morning. Anna actually is the one that woke her up, helps her get dressed. She tells Anna about everything that happened the night before. Anna was like, honestly, I think you should just do it. Like, you find him attractive. She's like, yeah, but that's the problem. Like, it's too much of a strong pull I feel for him. And I don't know what's going to happen if I cave in and I do it. So Anna helps her get dressed. They get to the wedding. Unfortunately, she's not going to be able to stand up there with Sophia because they are not going to allow this Russian girl to come up there. So Katerina is going to be her bridesmaid. They get through the ceremony. The only thing she tumbles over is that obey part. But she winds up saying it really fast. Love, honor, and obey really quickly. They're not married. We switch back to Luca. They're at the reception. It's funny because, you know, he had the same issues as far as thinking about the kiss. So when they got married, he gave her like a really sweet kiss, and he's never kissed her that way because they're always in these throes of like anger and passion, right? So it was this nice sweet kiss, and it made him think like, wouldn't it be nice to have something real, like a real marriage, you know? But he can never have that because that's going to be deemed a weakness. It's a liability. So then they have their first dance, and then after the first dance, Don Rossi cuts in and wants to dance with Sophia. So Luke goes to get a drink, goes to the bathroom, he comes out. Don Rossi is in his face, he's pissed. He knows he has lied. And basically when he danced with Sophia, he was able to get her to admit it, that she was a virgin. So, of course, now he's demanding that whole witnessing of the marital bed the next morning. And he tells Luca, you better do it, because if you don't, then you're dead too. Like, basically, I'll take both of you out. So, he also makes a comment because Luca's just kind of like, what is the big deal about this, right? He, admits he lied, but it was because he didn't want to force himself on her, you know? And Rossi just basically tells him she could bring down the whole organization. And that's all he says. And I'm just like, clearly you are not getting the full story. And I don't think Don Rossi is any good. I do not. Um, I'm wondering what part he could have taken in their parents' death, because I feel like he had to have had something to do with it. But how is she the downfall? Like, how is that possible? And why wouldn't you just take her out if she's that much of a like an actual problem for your organization? Something just don't add up. We switch back to Sophia. She doesn't hasn't seen Luca for a little while, and when she does see him, she can tell something's off. So eventually they get up to the room, and he lets her know, we got a problem. And she's like, what now? So then he tells her everything with Dawn, knowing she's a virgin. She realizes the conversation she had with them, that she's the one that gave it away. But this is why he should have fucking told her. Like, he should have said, like, this is going to be an issue. So I'm going to have to tell them that, or even if it was afterwards, I had to tell him that you're not a virgin. So that way they wouldn't come up and do this. So that way she would have known. So then if she fumbled, then this bitch is just on you, right? But you should have told her. She doesn't know that this is this huge deal. She just knows that you told her you were gonna, abide by what she said, which is, we ain't fucking. So this is on him. This is his fault because he should have told her. And she says that to him. Why didn't you tell me? And he's like, I didn't think it would come to that. Because he probably thought what was going to happen, he was probably going to try and pull it from like the doctor. So he probably made sure those, were taken care of. But he didn't make sure the person that needed to know the most was told. So that's his fault. So it is what it is. But he tells her, like, basically, if we don't do this, we're both dead. That's it. So then, of course, she gives in. She says, fine. So he, of course, wants to, like, make love to her. He wants to do all these different things to her. And he says, do you want, like, an amazing experience, or do you just want to get it over with? And she says, I just want to get it over with. And she sees a switch go off in him because it sounds so clinical. But again, she feels like if we just do this and get it over with, then I don't have that much of a shot for falling. I'm like, bitch, you're already falling. That's the problem. You're trying to stop something that's already occurring, you know? So since it's going to be clinical, just straight to it, he tells her, we'll just get in the bed. So she gets in, takes her clothes off or whatever, and then he gets a condom because remember, no kids. And while they're fucking, of course, she starts saying his name. That shit just turns him on. And now he's saying Sophia, and then he starts kissing her. And, they're having a making love fuck session, right? And so she comes, he comes, but then when he comes back to the bed, there's no blood. He goes, "You fucking lied to me." She's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "There's no blood. You fucking lied to me." He's like, "I lied for you, and now I'm gonna fucking die because, oh my gosh." He starts freaking out. And she says to him, "Everyone doesn't bleed on their first time." And he's like, he's not gonna care about that. He's old school, you know? So then he says, "Well, maybe like just take like a little nick in between her thighs so there'll be like a little blood that'll come out." And then she's kind of like, "Well, why didn't you think about this before?" But I'm like, hell, why you didn't think about it, you know? So he does that, and then afterwards she goes and takes a shower. They sleep on opposite sides of the bed, and she is just so pissed off. So the next day, they wake up. She won't even look at him. Won't talk to him. Um, then what's her name? The wife of the Dawn. I think her name is like Juliana. So her, Katarina, and the Dawn all come up. They witness the bed, and then afterwards, he talks to the Dawn outside, and Luca's telling him. No, I'm sorry. The Dawn is telling Luca, all is forgiven. That was just, it was just a mess up on your part. You're forgiven. But deep down, Luca knows the Dawn never forgets, right? And it's a mark on him, and he's gonna pay for that some kind of way. And that makes him angry, because he's angry at Sophia, because of the lie, but he's also angry at the Dawn because it's like he's done so much for him. And then one thing, which is this little white lie, right? It wasn't this major thing. All of a sudden, it's erased everything that I've ever done for you. And this is, this pisses him off. But this is also why I'm like, okay, again, there's something bigger in play here because this doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And Luca's not dumb, so it's like, I need you to ask more questions. So we switch back to Sophia and we find out that she also had a little conversation um with the Dawn, and he let her know, yes, she's a part of the family, but that's just a piece of paper. So he's letting her know the threat is still there. And to me, it's like, is the threat from the bravada or is it from just you? Like, what is really going on? So they go down to breakfast. It's not as many people, just the immediate family. She's going to get something to eat because he tells her, you need to at least try to look like you're eating something, because she was just over it. She was done faking stuff. She's like, I have had it, and she's getting her food, and then boom, there's an explosion. She hears Luca call out her name. He comes over to her, and then there's another explosion. And now Luca's on top of her, and she sees blood coming out of his nose. She feels blood on his side. She's thinking, either he's already dead or he's dying. And the last thing he tried to do was protect me, a woman he doesn't want. So right there, it's like those two things don't match up. So all she hears is screaming chaos, and then everything goes black, and that's how it ends. So the next book in the series is called Broken Promise. So what did you guys think of this? I like it. I am very much intrigued. I want to know the secrets. I want to know, why is this so essential, this marriage? Why? I need to know why. So, I'm so invested, ready to jump into that next book for next week. Let me know what you guys think. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. Um, if you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I will have those links available down in the description section below as well. Make sure you like and subscribe. Any suggestions, always put those down in the chat as well. Thank you so much. We have reached 500 subscribers. I am so excited. This has been an absolute great ride with you guys, and there's so many books for us to continue to go through. So I'm excited. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.